Now, the Buckeye Extra podcast with Rob Oller, Bill Rabinowitz, and Joey Kaufman from the Columbus Dispatch.
Hello, listeners. Welcome back to this week's edition of the Buckeye Extra Football Podcast. I'm Joey Kaufman, joined by Bill Rabinowitz and Rob Oller. And it's 12 days before Ohio State opens its season against Texas. And, Bill, I think that number is notable for some reason.
He tends to announce the quarterback 12 days before the opener. And it's not like 12 days is the target. It's just he usually talks on the Monday, the week before the season. So it happens to be 12 days. That's just kind of a sweet spot for when he announces he's seen enough of training camp that the quarterback has separated himself from the competition. And I don't think he wants to have it carry into actual game week before he gets that out there. So Julian Sayin is the starting quarterback. I don't think any of us are surprised by that. We thought he was the front runner. I think if anything, we were surprised that it took this long and that Lincoln Kienholz, by all accounts, really did give him a run for his money. And the way they talk today, he seems happy with both of them. It's not a situation like it felt a couple years ago where Kyle McCord and Devin Brown went at it and neither one could really sustain a lot of momentum until McCord kind of won by default after Devin Brown had a bad scrimmage. And I don't know if you guys saw the news, but Devin Brown was beaten out at Cal for the starting job by a true freshman quarterback today. That was announced today. So, Devin Brown went to Cal thinking that he'd be the starter, and he's not going to be the starter. So, Julian Sayin is a redshirt freshman, played in a few games last year. Great arm, very accurate, a lot of savvy. Not as big as Will Howard, as we know, he's 6'1". But he's a five-star guy. Nick Saban wanted him. I mean, he signed with Alabama. This is not some guy off the street. This is a very coveted quarterback.
The number one ranked guy in the class.
He was the top quarterback in the class last year. Ask Aaron Noland.
I'm on to Ryan Day here. This 12-day thing. I think
on to him. Yeah.
I'm on to him. Bill, you just said, "Oh, we're surprised that it was this close." And yeah, we were surprised, but I don't think it was this close. I think the psychology of it now, Ryan Day has it down. It serves him no purpose. Does him no good to announce a starter a month or more out. So he's just going to say it's close, even if he in his heart of hearts knows. I think he knew it was Julian Sayin. I'm not saying that Kienholz didn't make it interesting, but this at some point, 12 days before or whatever, 16 days before every year. I mean, there's gotta be some separation more than that in past years. 90% of us thought it was Julian Sayin. It was Julian Sayin. 90% of us thought it was McCord. It was McCord. 90% eventually, 90+% of us thought it was Will Howard, and it was. In a way, he's not fooling anybody. I think as a coach, again, the psychology is you don't want the guy that doesn't get the job to sulk and sort of just kind of go through the motions. And I think that's, he went on and on last week about the Iron Buckeye, and Lincoln Kienholz was an Iron Buckeye. And he absolutely said that, they're the backbone of the team. This is what threw a little question mark in my mind is when Day was going on and on about the Iron Buckeye, and he didn't really mention Kienholz other than he was one. And I thought, well, maybe Kienholz has a shot here. Well, I don't think he really had a shot.
So, it also doesn't pay to let Texas know who the quarterback's going to be any earlier than he.
Yeah, although they're getting into game planning now. I mean, they're just starting their game planning for Texas. So I assume.
Well, I think they've done this game all season. I think they've done bits and pieces.
Yeah. I think it's more of let's not lose the number 2 guy.
And I think the bottom line, too, especially in this quarterback competition, is that neither Lincoln Kienholz nor Julian Sayin had earned any benefit of the doubt. Neither of them had started a college game. Lincoln Kienholz's most extended time behind center was 3 quarters in the Cotton Bowl when he was really ill-prepared to be in that situation. And Sayin was the number 3 quarterback who thrown a grand total of 12 passes in 4 games last season. So you have to let it play out in some fashion, even if the conclusion feels a little bit like an inevitable, which is how it's tended to go in each of these quarterback competitions that Ohio State has had since Ryan Day took over. There hasn't been ever a situation that we've seen where there was a surprise candidate emerge. Justin Fields was supposed to win in 19. He did. C.J. Stroud was supposed to win in 21. He did. Kyle McCord was supposed to win in 23, and the only real drama was that it carried over into the season. He didn't run away with it in August like he was supposed to. And then last year, Will Howard, as was expected after transferring from Kansas State and having 25 career starts under his belt, beat out Devin Brown there. We have not seen a really shocking upset, somebody who was really not forecasted to win the job after spring practice make some sort of push in camp to win it. So I think that is probably why it's hard, at least probably for a lot of us, to really be terribly shocked. It's sort of how any of these have, especially this one, played out.
Who'd Stroud beat out? Was that Martell?
It was McCord, freshman, and Jack Miller was there too at the time.
Was that really a competition? Was that legit, or was that really we knew?
Not really. I mean, I never thought it was that. I mean, McCord was a true freshman, so that's a hard thing. And Jack Miller clearly had kind of, I don't say fizzled out, but well, yeah, we'll say.
I think you could say. I think he
yeah. I mean,
high school.
Yeah. So and remember, Quinn Ewers showed up, into training camp, but he was never going to be a factor in that competition. So no, I don't think anyone was surprised. And look, I think we talked about this. I thought Julian Sayin had at least an 80% chance to win this job. I thought the fact that Keenholz was clearly playing well, and the Iron Buckeye thing, which I agree with you, Rob, they really put a lot of emphasis on that. I thought that gave him, at least a puncher's chance. And if Sayin had the kind of scrimmage on Saturday that Devin Brown did a couple years ago, then yeah, maybe it would have been Keenholz. But barring a kind of a development like that, as long as Sayin didn't lose the job, I thought he was going to win the job.
Here's what I heard today from Ryan Day. And the first thing he said, because you can talk all you want about command of the huddle and leadership and toughness, and that's all true. But the very first thing he says, you have to be able to throw the ball. You have to be, and I think this really comes down to Julian Sayin is just a better passer than Keenholz. I mean, all things being equal, you'll always take the better thrower, the better arm, and I think it's probably pretty significantly better. You also get into the processing, the mental processing, seeing the field. You get into that, but the very first thing Ryan Day said was, you got to be able to throw the football.
And my takeaway,
my takeaway was Julian Sayin he just throws the ball better and more accurate. I think he said, completion percentage and accuracy. Right. I just think that's Sayin over Keenholz, as it was McCord, over Brown and, Stroud, just all that. I think he wants a guy that can pretty much make all the throws.
And he doesn't want a guy who's going to blow a game by throwing 3 picks. I mean, that's the thing he starts with. Don't lose the game. We have such a great supporting cast. Don't blow it. Don't be a hero. As he says all the time, make the routine plays routinely. But yeah, he's a former quarterback. He's a quarterback coach. This is who he is. He wants to see a quarterback make quarterback throws. And Sayin can do that.
And this is a year where you have the supporting cast, which really tilts toward a quarterback who can throw the ball. Maybe we have not talked about that enough, but just the way they've arranged their skill talent on offense is such that you really want to put the ball in the air because you got some guys who can come down with it. Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate are certainly 2 names that are well known, but Brandon Ennis, who's voted the captain, is probably going to end up in the slot. Some guys like Mylan Graham, who I think can play, and Bryson Rodgers. It's a deep group of receivers, and you have question marks at running back. I'm not saying they're not going to run the ball, but in terms of where your talent is dispersed on offense, it's certainly the pass catchers, I think, more so than the running backs, because that positioning room is so green and so inexperienced that you really just have some exceptional guys at receiver that you want to get the ball in those guys' hands. And need that I think is probably a very important part of their calculations. Well,
if you have Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate and Brandon Ennis and Max Clare, the tight end.
I neglected to say Max Clare, but yes.
Yeah, Max Clare. I mean, CJ Donaldson is a proven running back. He had a good career at West Virginia. I think James Peoples is going to be really good. I thought it was interesting that Day said there were 3 running backs he feels comfortable with, and then somebody asked him, and he wouldn't say. I'm assuming the third is Bo Jackson, freshman. But there is. You think about last year's talent on offense, and boy, it was talented, obviously. I don't see a huge drop off this year. I think Brandon Inniss will be a reasonable impersonation of Emeka Egbuka. I think, I just kind of touted the running backs. I think that's a step down from what they had last year. I'm not going to be kind of silly and think that they're as good as TreVeyon Henderson and Quinshon Judkins.
But that's not nothing, Bill. That is not nothing.
No, I'm not saying it's nothing.
Right, I know you're not. I just, it's interesting that running back room. It's TreVeyon, and of course, TreVeyon just exploded last year. We just
right.
And Judkins was very good. So I'm not saying these guys won't be, because that's probably the easiest position to just plug and play.
Right.
But there's a drop off, I would think.
Yeah, there is. But I think the offensive line is better this year, going into this year, than it was lacking. Yes, Donovan Jackson's hard to replace. He was an All-American player. But you look at the depth they have now, I think this offensive line should be pretty good. Should be very good. I'm probably the surprise for me of the offseason is that Austin Sareveld, who was essentially a backup guard last year, is now the starting left tackle. He's just apparently dazzled, because he struck me as being like a guard, right? You look at him and he looks like a guard, but they are sold on him at left tackle.
It clicked for him,
I guess.
Sometimes that
they had Ethan Onyanwa, who everyone thought was going to be the left tackle.
I do think the offensive line, hear what Joey has to say about this. It's like an interesting, study, because McLaughlin was very good at center. He was very good at center. And you've got some guys that stepped in last year, and did a great job. Can they repeat that? I mean, that's the question. I thought that the O-line last year, which wasn't it the question mark going into the season, one of the question marks?
The question mark.
But, Jackson was very good and McLaughlin was very good. Everybody else was you just didn't know. And this year, do you know more? I guess we know more about the line, but I'm not sure you have the super stud guy on the line that you had last year at 2 positions. What do you think, Joey?
I mean, I don't think at first blush there's anybody on this offensive line that is going to be a first-round draft pick in April of 26. And they had 2 last year in Donovan Jackson and Josh Simmons. And I think that is one difference. But it's a deep group, because you have 2 transfers who are competing for that right tackle spot, who would ordinarily, I think, be very capable of starting, and Ethan Onyanwa from Rice and Phil Daniels from Minnesota. And then you have somebody like Josh Padilla, who's the backup center and is very capable, as from what everyone has said about sort of his future at Ohio State. So to me, it's a line that's actually pretty deep, but it maybe doesn't have the flashy star power. But some of those guys, Carson Hinsman, Luke Montgomery, really stepped up in the college football playoff, and Austin Sareveld played in the playoff as well, had a big offseason, Tegra Chabola. So you have guys on the line, maybe they aren't flashy, high-end NFL draft picks, but they have played in big playoff games and were a big part of the reason Ohio State won 4 playoff games to win a national championship.
Where's the weak underbelly? D-line?
I think the interior of the defensive line depth.
Yeah, I think running back too. Like, I know we were talking about the running back a little bit ago, but just they had star power at running back last year with TreVeyon Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. Judkins could eat yards. TreVeyon could be explosive as part of a big play threat. And they were both experienced. You have such a running back group that just does not, at this point in time, have much of a track record. And the anything you can truly bank on. I like CJ Donaldson. He's got a tight end background too, so he can be a pass catcher. He's a big, heavy guy who can run between the tackles. So he's promising. But I mean, I think part of it is just you lost 2 great running backs.
Yeah, but I think like the tight ends group is much better this year than it was last year. I think G. Scott ended up being a good player. Don't get me wrong, but Max Clare is a different level. Max Clare is an All-American caliber player, and everyone else is a year older. And Will Kazmarek proved he could be a good player. Still waiting on Jelani Thurman to kind of break out. But there's a lot of depth in that room.
I just got to interject here. This is one of those things, once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Uh-oh.
Bill is sitting right in front of his guitar, and it looks like he's got devil horns coming out of his head. And I'm just sorry it had to be said, because I'm sure people, if they're watching this, which I don't know.
Is this better?
Yes.
My Rickenbacker.
It's like you sold your soul for the.
I have sold my soul. Well, it's for another time. That's a Rickenbacker bought at the Haight-Ashbury guitar store and no longer exists in San Francisco. Yes.
All right. There you go.
Yeah.
Hurry up. Back. That was just a little timeout.
Little interlude.
A little interlude.
I'm not the devil anymore.
It now.
I'm not the devil anymore. Meanwhile, your face is frozen, which may be scarier.
Or better.
Oh, yeah.
Or better.
All right. What about the interior D line? We kind of didn't really touch on that. I don't want to accentuate the negative, but this again, when you're Ohio State, you're so good. It's nitpicking is what you're left with. So what are you looking at?
I'm actually surprised
the ends aren't going to.
I'm surprised there hasn't been more nitpicking this offseason. In some ways, the amount of talent that they lost 14 draft picks, and they're being penciled in as number 2 or number 3 in the preseason. I mean, I think you could look at a lot of ways where this team has a real shot to repeat as national champions this year, but they also
fans are happy. The fans are still in their honeymoon, and they got a natty. There's whatever happens. In fact, the poll we did a survey, and it was like the majority don't think they're going to repeat. And it's like, if you make the semifinals, that's a really good season, and beat Michigan, of course.
That's the one I'm telling you, people care more this year. Do you beat Michigan than do you repeat? I mean, not to say that one is more important.
No, I agree. 100%.
But if you're to say you got to do one thing, it's you got to beat Michigan.
Right.
And, what's interesting about Michigan is, obviously their sanctions, that's now in the past. They know what they got to deal with. And they're probably going to start a freshman quarterback, a true freshman quarterback. So, but the game's up in Ann Arbor. They still got a good team. They should have a better team this year.
And the freshman won't be a freshman by then.
Right, he won't be a freshman by then. Look, Michigan's, what are they ranked, 16th or something like that? I mean, in that range. So on paper, Ohio State's a better team, but a lot can happen between now and then. And we all know a lot can happen in that game that makes no sense, right? I mean, but I do think that people say, what's the thing Ohio State has to do? They would say beat Michigan as opposed to win the national championship.
I would agree with that.
The Michigan game does have me thinking is you have Michigan, which is probably going to start a true freshman, Bryce Underwood, and you have Ohio State starting a redshirt freshman in Julian Sayin, and you look across the country, and there are so many teams that are toward the top of the range that do not have veteran starting quarterbacks anymore. And part of that is the phasing out of guys who are able to stay in college longer due to the COVID eligibility waivers and all that stuff. And this is now a situation where you are going to need to win really, truly the old-fashioned way and really develop a quarterback over the long haul of a season. And it reminds me of 21. C.J. Stroud was much better toward the end of that season in his first year as a starter in November than he was in September. And that same probably holds true for Julian Sayin and other quarterbacks across the country where they're going to need to get better as the year goes on. And I'll be interested to see how Ohio State fans react to Sayin if he's not spectacular out of the gate. I mean,
they'll hear about it. Here's a little nugget. Ohio State has never won an opener against a ranked team when they had a first-time starter at quarterback.
A lot of research for a columnist there, Rob.
Yeah, I put that in there. Now they haven't played that many. It's a small sample size. They've only this was hard for me to believe. Not the tangent, but I will. They've only played in the history of Ohio State football. They've only opened against a ranked team 10 times, which shows you they were just playing nobodies for. They really were. They did stack that opener, and most teams don't come out of the gate against a ranked team. I mean that's.
Let alone number one team.
Yeah, and they're 5-5 in those games, and most of those games were with a starter who had started multiple games the previous year. But I think that they're 0-2. So that's not a huge sample size, but it is. I think it was Steve Bellisari in 90. I want to say, gosh,
99.
98, I believe. And then Art Schlichter in
I was
70.
at that game, the Penn
Yeah,
State game.
five
I was at that game.
interceptions. And Woody didn't announce that starter until the game began, when no one was certain, because Rod Gerald had been the starting quarterback,
wide receiver, right?
and he moved to wide receiver, and Art trots on the field, and the place goes crazy, and then it quickly got quiet after 5 picks and a 19-zip loss to the number 5 Nittany Lions.
It's not just Ohio State. I mean, Texas, Arch Manning has been, much ballyhooed, and some of that's because of his name and family, but he's also a terrific prospect. But, he's started a couple games against lesser teams. He's never faced anything like walking into the horseshoe and as a starter playing against Ohio State. We can talk about Julian Sayin, and that's legit, right? I mean, Julian Sayin's never started a game, but Arch Manning is probably as prepared as anybody could be for the situation he's in, but he's still an inexperienced quarterback. And, it's, right. I mean, I feel differently about this game with it being in Columbus.
If it was Peyton Manning.
Well, Peyton Manning's like 45 now, so I wouldn't feel that.
He might still get it done.
Yeah. But if this game were in Austin, if this game were in Texas and Julian Sayin had to make his college starting debut there, I'd feel a lot less confident about the game. I still think it's a toss-up game in Columbus, but they have the advantage of being at home. And, Arch Manning I think he's a terrific athlete. I'm not going to dispute all these people who say he's a great prospect. I haven't seen him against good competition do a whole lot because he hasn't had a chance to do a whole lot, but the jury's still out on him too.
Yeah, his two starts are Louisiana. His 2 starts are Louisiana, Monroe, Mississippi State. So
Mississippi State was bad.
This is not an extensive track record. I mean, him being a first-year starting quarterback is in some ways analogous to Kyle McCord in 23, where he had 1 career start against Akron coming in.
Yeah.
I think that's
what Texas. We'll get into Texas, but do they return a lot?
Yeah, I mean, that offensive line, they got to replace a lot of guys. I mean, they lost a lot of players too. I mean, they were 12 players drafted, I think it was.
Right.
So they lost a lot too, but their defense should be really good. They're big, they're strong, they're deep. They lost a lot of players too.
What do you do with Keenholz? Is he going to come in on package? I mean, Ryan Day kind of
I thought
hinted that there'd be a Devin Brown type of, I'm not sure it'll be a goal line situation. Like Devin Brown went in and got injured immediately. Remember that?
Yeah, that was against Purdue, I think mid-season, back in 23. I was trying to really weigh his comment versus really considering using Keenholz as sort of a package player or paying lip service to the idea. Because what are you going to say? No, we never intend to work him in.
Right.
I mean, it's sort of, you put him in a spot where it's like, he said, I think his quote was, he got asked about it. He said, sure, yep.
Let's put it this way. I think there'll be a package in there for Keenholz against Grambling and, maybe Ohio. But Texas,
yeah, maybe not against.
Well, Texas used Arch Manning last year against Ohio State. He had the one play, right, that keeper, where he almost fumbled. He fumbled after he hit the ground. But I could see that as a possibility. But do I think it's going to be a major part of the game plan? No.
The only time they've really done it in Day's tenure was 23 with a little bit of Devin Brown. And I think you have to wonder how much of that was Devin Brown versus just how he felt about his current starting quarterback that season. But there is, I guess, a data point. You could say, hey, they've done it before, and they, Julian Sayin and Lincoln Keenholz do have some different skill sets. Lincoln is a good athlete, and they probably could bring him in to run the ball, maybe a little more as a red zone or short yardage option.
Joe, I want to come back to something you said, because how much heat will Sayin take if he stumbles against Texas? Because I'm of the belief he's gonna stumble. I mean, it's just how badly, or how minimize the really bad mistakes. I mean, he's a first-time starter. It's a lot. It's too much to expect him to shine against what Bill says is a really good defense. Are fans going to be okay? We understand. I think he does get the benefit of that honeymoon period of the Buckeyes. It's like, okay, our expectations are not what they have been, but he's going to take the heat. How does he handle it?
Well, he'll take some heat too. And as far as the honeymoon period, I think that's a good point. And I would add, secondly, that I think you would just have to be one of the most unreasonable people in the world. And granted, there are a few of them in Buckeye Nation, but it's the first game he's playing against the number one team in the country. So I do think most people will have a sort of a realistic viewpoint of what he could do in that first week. I actually think a harder situation would be if they had two maybe so-so teams in your second or third start. You're playing Texas, which is number one, and you look really good the first weekend against some directional school and come in and just, I think that would maybe increase your expectations. The fact that he's never started, it's a blank slate. So maybe that helps him out a little bit.
Also think it'll help him that he's not really on social media. I mean, I think we talked about this before. Joey did the story on Lincoln Keenholz. I did it on Julian Sayin. And I went to lunch with him and I said, in 3 months, you're probably not going to be able to do this if things go the way you want it to go in terms of you being the starter. And he said, yeah, you're right. But I said, are you on Twitter? He said, I have an account, but I don't do anything on it. And, that's basically the way he is with social media. Another thing that will help him, he has his mom and his older sister who live in town. They've kind of moved to Columbus. And so he's got a support system here. He's not a 20-year-old kid who was alone here. So I think that will help him. And he just strikes me as being a very level-headed, quietly confident guy who's not going to get phased. I mean, he knows he's going to have ups and downs. It's inevitable. You're going to have ups and downs. I don't think anyone's expecting Ohio State to go undefeated this year. I mean, people did last year, and they don't this year. And so I think that he is based on, again, it's an hour lunch I had with him. I'm not going to pretend to know him, as a close friend or anything like that. But you get a sense of somebody. And my sense is that he will be able to handle the ups and downs because he's not going to get caught in the muck of, trying to respond to people on social media or even seeing what they're saying on social media.
Here's where he faces a little bit of a potential issue. They have so much talent at the wide receiver,
right?
That if you can't get those guys the ball, then it'll come back on him. Yeah. In other words, you got a Jeremiah Smith. Like if he's open and you are not making the play, and with all these receivers, now he has so many options, and I think he's good enough that he will get them the ball more than not. But when he doesn't get them the ball, and Jeremiah Smith is kind of like, without a TD, or is kind of doing, hey, what's going on here, freshman, redshirt freshman, sophomore, whatever he is. That could be the issue among fans of, we got all this talent and this guy's got to get him the ball. So that would be the main thing I would see playing out. I'm not saying that happens, but that's like the potential pitfall for him.
I think the bigger risk would be if Ohio State didn't have such a strong supporting cast and he's holding the ball waiting for somebody to get open. I think the supporting cast is going to make it easier for him. I mean, if Jeremiah Smith is covered, he's not really covered. And so you throw the ball up to him and say, go be Jeremiah. And so I don't think that's going to be a major issue. Is he going to make a bad throw? Of course he is. Is he going to get sacked or get, the inexperience show at times? Of course it's going to. But I think Sayin is good enough that if you give him a clean pocket and you give him an open receiver, he's going to hit the guy. I guess that's the final word. I left you guys speechless.
We just knew you had more to say, as you always do.
No, I'm done.
There's more to say.
Yeah, we've avoided that stupid shit. We've avoided that stupid thing for months, and Joey had to blow it. Just saying.
I'd say you should get them out now before they really jump the shark.
They've jumped. They done jumped.
Yeah, they done jumped.
All right, what else? You guys you were getting in the weeds on the kicker.
No, we're not talking about the kicker.
We're not expending
until it comes down to a field goal at the end.
Time or no specialist hour today. It's just all straight QB1.
Caleb Downs, where's he going to play? What's your prediction?
Who?
Caleb Downs. I mean, aren't they moving? Isn't there some talk of like kind of moving him around a little bit?
They're going to move him wherever they think the ball's going to be.
Well, I know. But where will he primarily? He's going to be safety.
Yeah, he's a safety.
It's more of a question of how much of it is he deep? Is he in the nickel?
Right.
Okay, yeah, that's what I mean.
And midway through last season,
How about punt returns? What do you think?
Brandon Innes, Caleb Downs.
Yeah. Well, Downs.
I don't think we've had one question this year about who the punt returner is. Am I right?
Well, I think we have one more shot at it.
We have one more shot. Do you blow your question on that?
Well, I think it's going to be Innes, but I mean, Downs took it to the house last year, right? So, I think
against we'll be Caleb against
you may see Downs back there against Texas. You may see Downs back there again.
Question: do you ever see Downs on offense this year?
Yeah. Well, if you do, that means there's a problem, right?
Running backs or Bo Jackson ain't getting it done.
Well, here's the funny thing: if Caleb Downs wants to win the Heisman, that's one way to do it. Stick him back there, let him get some highlights, and Caleb Downs, Heisman winner.
Yeah, I view any. Well, I shouldn't say that because there is a situation where I guess your running back room is completely decimated. But if he would ever play running back, it would almost feel like gravy on the Heisman campaign, like trying to somehow gin up.
Right, exactly.
And that's new how? Other places do it all the time. Well, we'll see. Hey, we haven't touched on Michigan. Should we just finish with Michigan?
Sure.
Cheaters of the West.
Cheaters prosper. Well, cheaters get poor. That's that. What? It's $20 million. It's really like a $30 million fine.
30 to 35 million. I read a thing
That's
today.
significant.
It is. I know they have an endowment of some ridiculous billion, 17 billion, but they do have that. So if desperation, they could tap into that. That's usually earmarked for the academic side, and you can't just do that with what you want. It will make a dent unless they just have, some donors just give, 10 million each or something, which that's easier said than done. I do think though, the thing that hurts is, a bowl ban. And I'm not real big on the vacate your wins because, that who cares? But the bowl ban, like a 2-year bowl ban would have really, really hurt them. And I don't get it because the NCAA essentially said they cheated. They cheated like no one's ever cheated, essentially. Right. But they didn't want to punish those who weren't on the team, who are now on the team, which is a total new tact. I'm not saying it's a wrong tact, but it's totally new, back to the tattoo gate days.
It follows what they did with Tennessee maybe it was last year. Or the other.
Yeah, I think Tennessee was $8 million, right?
Right. It's more heavily fine them. Don't punish the current players has really been.
But that's just leading to more cheating. I mean, if you're not going to really make it hurt, you're just going to do it financially. I mean, what are you going to do when Texas A&M has billions and billions?
I don't think that fine is nothing. I know
it's not nothing, but in real terms, practical terms of what you see on the field and what really hurts a program, it's nothing. Well, it might hurt their athletic department.
Yeah, but the athletic department hires the coaches, and you have a good staff, and you want to lure people away from other jobs.
I would say
why is Jim Knowles at Penn State right now? Because Penn State offered him $3 million. I mean,
I get it. Okay, let me ask you. I'll ask you a direct question. If you're Michigan, if you're the football program, would you rather have a $20 million fine or miss two years of bowls?
Well, that's $20. That's a hypothetical question. It's a rhetorical question.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So, it could have been worse, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but the NCAA is so skittish right now because they lose every lawsuit. They're the Washington Generals of lawsuits. They lose every lawsuit. So they don't want to lose another one. Michigan takes it to the court. The NCAA is essentially powerless in a lot of ways, and they could. People who don't know say, well, they could have vacated the national championship. No, it's because the CFP has nothing to do with the NCAA.
Right,
and so they don't have authority over that.
That wasn't going to happen.
Right. But the reputation is significant. The NCAA, I didn't read the whole report, but I saw some of the comments. That's as harsh as I've ever seen the NCAA criticize a program. And I'm not saying it was as bad as maybe like in the bad old days of the Southwest Conference where it was just rampant, but basically they said Michigan cheated and tried everything they could to not cooperate and to screw the investigation. Right? I mean,
Right.
they was very harsh. There was none of this legalese kind of stuff that you sometimes see with these things. This was in plain English. These guys cheated and were proud of it.
Connor Stallions threw his phone into a pond.
Right.
To get rid of the evidence. It's like, it's Tony Soprano. You know, it's like, let's throw the body where no one will find it. It's just.
Well, if Jim Harbaugh wants to coach in the year 2062, he's eligible.
I will say this. I do think, and I wrote this, I think they're national. Now, some people have pushed back and said in 20 years, no one will remember. And maybe so. But for the foreseeable future, they're labeled cheaters. They just are.
They are cheaters.
Right. And I think more people than I'm been a little surprised that more people and more comments I have seen from national media that the national championship was even tainted, which I don't know. I mean, it is. It is and it isn't. I think they did win it on the field. I think that, we've talked about this. They gained confidence in 21 and 22 through cheating that set them up for 23. I don't think the actual sign stealing, enabled them to win in 23.
Well, he got caught early in 23, right?
He did. He got caught early.
So no, they didn't have the advantage.
My whole point is, I was surprised that I think that there's a lot of people thinking that even their national title is like, asterisk, which, I think kind of is.
Well, with all those guys, let's say Michigan in 21-22 doesn't have great seasons. And again, there's no way to know how much it really helped. Although if you know the signs, it certainly helps. But let's say that they were 9-3 those years. Do all those guys come back? Do they get so close to winning national championship? They say, okay, we're coming back, as opposed to, okay, they had a nice college career. Look, that was a great team in 23. I mean, J.J. McCarthy, that defense, that was a legitimate national championship team. And they deserve, the success they had on the field was deserved. But it was the foundation of it was shady.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Anyhow, Harbaugh is out and he'll never be back. Just like us, just like Bill.
Well, I think that just does about everything for the latest around Ohio State. QB1 announced and Michigan fodder. I got to run for some other stuff, but thanks for joining us and listening to the BuckeyeXtra Football Podcast.
Be sure and subscribe to the BuckeyeXtra Podcast in the iTunes Store, the Google Play Store, or on Stitcher.